No. No. Too many Kiwis. No. Kiwis everywhere. Ragnarok. Hey everybody, Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard here. It's finally here, the final Marvel movie of the year, Thor Ragnarok. Let's talk about it. Where's it fit in the Marvel Universe? How good was it? What I like, what I dislike. Let's get into all that shenanigans right now. Being, of course, that this is a Marvel movie, let me give you my hierarchy of what we've gotten from Marvel so far in 2017. So, of course, at the top of the list, still the leader of the pack, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Still love it. It's still awesome. Then right under that, a very close second, Spider-Man Homecoming. Still enjoyed it. It was very awesome. Had a lot of fun with it. Then next we have The Defenders, Season 1. A lot of fun. I thought it could have been a little better and had some problems, but overall it was a good time. Then well under that, we have Iron Fist. Of course, I've gone over it. It was boring, all that stuff. Danny's an idiot. Yeah, it's there. And then finally, at the bottom, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4. I really hated that season. I really did. Of course, Inhumans isn't on here, yet I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt that I'm going to let the whole season play out, and then I'll rate it. But it's not looking good. But anyways, so where does Thor Ragnarok fit on this list? Let's talk about it. So Thor Ragnarok is brought to us by director Taika Waititi, who did What We Do in the Shadows, and a lot of people gave me a crap last year when I said I had no idea who this guy was. It was a joke. I know who Taika Waititi is. So anyways, the plot of Thor Ragnarok is this takes place 3 years after Age of Ultron. Thor's been running around space looking for the Infinity Stones and hasn't really come across any of them. But he has come across a plot to take over Asgard. So he comes back to Asgard, and because of the events of Thor Dark World, Loki has hidden Odin and is taking the place of Odin. And he sees that, Asgard isn't prepared for an invasion. So they go to look for Odin and hopefully stop the coming invasion. So that is the basic plot without getting into too many spoilers of Thor Ragnarok. So let's talk about the characters. So of course we got a lot of returning characters and some new characters. So I'm going to start with the returning ones and start with, of course, the titular Thor, played once again by Australian grade A beefcake Chris Hemsworth, which of course is the A Hemsworth. So the first Thor movie, Thor was, overconfident, assholey, Thor. Of course, you need to grow into that. The second Thor movie, Dark World, he was kind of holding the world on his shoulders, kind of dour Thor. This is funny Thor. Basically, those little short movies of Thor and his roommate, this is that version of Thor. It's funny Thor, which we haven't got before. I don't know if I'm sold on it. He can be entertaining at times, but I also like Thor being Thor, and that's why it's funny when he's silly, but if he's silly all the time, it kind of takes away from how funny that is, because you expect him to be silly instead of, expect him to be serious, if that makes any sense. I don't know. But, he was still pretty good, but I'm not sure if I buy silly Thor. Then, of course, we have Loki, played by every woman's wet dream, Tom Hiddleston. Look at him dance.
Hit the...
So, Loki is really awesome in this. He's not terribly different than the previous movies. You're not sure if you can trust him, but maybe you can trust him, maybe you can't, you're not sure, I don't know. But he's still a lot of fun. I enjoy Tom Hiddleston, and Tom Hiddleston definitely enjoys this role, and I enjoyed that. And of course, we have Mark Ruffalo returning as the Hulk and Bruce Banner. So this movie reminded me that I don't think we've given Bruce Banner much character. He was acting silly at one point, and I was like, why is Bruce acting silly? Or does Bruce act silly? I don't know. Have we really spent a lot of time with him? I mean, we have the whole Incredible Hulk movie, but I mean, one, that was forever ago, and there's also Mark Ruffalo has a bit of a different take than Ed Norton did. So, yeah, I don't know if we really have much character of, Bruce Banner himself. So, yeah, I don't know. He was interesting. I don't know how I feel about the Bruce Banner. Yeah. Now, Hulk has been Hulk for 3 years, so he's actually got more of a mental capacity. He can talk, he can reason, things like that. They play him off like a child that would have the power of Hulk. Likes to play around, throw jokes, but is also, stubborn and a bit of a dick. I liked what they did with Hulk here. They made him a little bit more of a character rather than just this monstrous force. And Hulk in the comics is an actual character, so I'm glad they kind of brought that in. And we got some new characters, of course, and I'm going to start with the villain of the movie, Hela, played awesomely by Cate Blanchett, and yes, I loved her. One, she looks gorgeous in this movie. She always does, but I like the goth girls, I'm not going to lie. So, she looked gorgeous in this. As well as she was a very intimidating and dark and really interesting villain. Not something we usually get from Marvel. She had a very cool backstory. I like what she did. It was really awesome. I loved Hela. And we have Jeff Goldblum, who plays the Grand Master. So basically, Thor finds himself on this planet that's kind of the junkyard of the planet. And there's this gladiator-style games going on with it, ran by Jeff Goldblum. And I don't think they really gave him a script, and I really don't think they changed his clothes either. I think they just snagged him out of his house, threw some blue lipstick on him, and was like, hey, go at it. Because he was just at his bloomiest in this movie. Just saying weird stuff, but it was hilarious because Jeff Goldblum is crazy, but the fun kind of crazy, where he just kind of says weird things. And I liked it. He's very much enjoyable. And it gives me, another time to do my Jeff Goldblum impression. Checkmate.
You're so good. You're so good.
And finally, last one I want to talk about is Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson, who you might recognize from Creed and Westworld, and I love her. She is a former Valkyrie who had a bit of who's not living in Asgard. I won't say why, because it's a spoiler. But she's recruited by Thor to help stop Hela, and she is, snarky and brash and kicking ass. She's awesome. I loved what she did. I love Valkyrie. Valkyrie was a lot of fun. A great addition to this cast. I really hope she makes it into Avengers Infinity War. But yeah, she's really awesome. So what worked well about Thor Ragnarok? Well, I feel like they really addressed a lot of the problems that people have been having about Marvel movies. One of the main ones being they're kind of the same movie. They have the same look, the same feel, the same soundtrack. It's just the same movies. This one has very different look, brighter colors, a completely different soundtrack that's all synthwave. It's very awesome. It's even different from Guardians of the Galaxy, which is the one you can most relate it to, but is still a very different style. And the line delivery is different. It's a very different looking and feeling movie than any other Marvel movie before it. And I really like that. I think that was much needed in this universe. Just a nice, breath of fresh air into it. And of course, since it's a Marvel movie, I love the tie-ins to the other characters. Almost every Avenger is name dropped. We do get a cameo from Doctor Strange. I mean, it's not too much of a spoiler if you've seen Doctor Strange. Tony's referenced, Cap's referenced, Black Widow, Hawkeye, they're all referenced, and that's really cool. It really ties in. It really takes place right after Age of Ultron. Well, 3 years, but like you watch Age of Ultron, this is a continuation of that, and I like what they did there. It's really cool. And like I said before, Hela is an awesome villain. And that is another complaint a lot of people have about the Marvel movies, is that the villains are lame and they don't do a lot with them. This is one they do a lot of cool stuff with. She's very intimidating, very awesome. I really liked her. This is one of the top tier Marvel villains and was very well done. But no movie is perfect. Where does Thor Ragnarok fall short? Well, first and biggest problem is basically this movie is all fluff with no substance. I equate it to those chocolate-covered marshmallow eggs you see around Easter, where it's tasty now, but it has no nutritional value. There's nothing to it. It's just marshmallow and sugar. And that's this. It's all big set pieces, big fight scenes, but not a lot in depth with it. I don't see anyone being like an in-depth look at Thor Ragnarok and its deeper meanings. I think this is all surface. It's all fluff and no substance. Best way to put it, really. There's not a lot to sink your teeth into. Sure, it's fun, but there's not really much more to it than that. As you saw, of course, in the trailers, there's a lot of jokes, and I think they went way too overboard with jokes. I like levity in comic movies, of course. And Guardians, had a really good balance of comedy, but also keeping a solid action movie. This one, I think, overdid it with the comedy. I think, they saw Guardians, like, well, let's do that, and they just threw in way too much comedy, and it started feeling ham-fisted and forced. Like, oh, we haven't had a joke in a while. Have somebody do something awkward or do some slapstick. So the jokes really started feeling forced. Like, there's a few, giggles and nods in the other Thor movies, like, when he gets tasered in the first movie or when he has to ride the train in the second movie. Like, there's some funny parts. This one, it's just constant, joke after joke, and it takes away from the tension too much. So I think they just overdid it with the jokes. Another minor problem I had, but it did start to bug me, is of course Taika Waititi is from New Zealand. And so he hired all his buddies to play the smaller roles. So everyone had a New Zealand Kiwi accent. And that just really kind of bothered me. I don't know why. It's because we have all agreed what the space accent is. And that's English RP.
You don't know how hard I found it signing the order to terminate your life.
I'm surprised you had the courage to take the responsibility yourself.
That is the space accent. You can't just change it, Taika Waititi. That's not the space accent. The Kiwi accent is not the space accent. It's English RP. We've all agreed on this. It was voted by committee. That's our space accent. When you're from space and you're a humanoid, you speak English RP. All right. Another thing I kind of noticed is Kevin Feige really built this one up, saying it was going to be the Winter Soldier of Phase 3, where this is going to change the world and give us a new, fresh take on it and just shift up the entire Marvel universe. Not really. I mean, it didn't seem very grand or epic to me, and it didn't feel like it shifted anything in the universe. It just kind of existed. And it was also touted as, a road trip movie with Thor and Hulk. I didn't really see that either. So yeah, the build-up and the hype didn't live up to the hype that it was given, for sure. And this, again, is a minor complaint, but still there. It had a lot of, filthy, lowbrow jokes. And for me, that's fine, but I was sitting next to some very young kids, and, they talked about anuses a lot, and orgies, and it's like, oh my god, like, this is really raunchy humor. Like, holy crap. I really feel bad for that kid's mom who has to now go home and tell him what an orgy is. So, Yeah, that happened. So yeah, if you're really protective of your kid, this has some very raunchy jokes in it. So be aware of that. But I think that's my only complaint. So let's get into some spoilers. So I'm throwing up the spoiler sign and skip to this time code here if you want to skip spoilers, because we're doing spoilers now. So my first big spoiler complaint is now it feels like just any ship can fly into Asgard, like regardless of the Rainbow Bridge. Like they just flew a ship in and then flew a ship out, like it's just a planet you land on. There's a freaking rainbow. It's another dimension. Like you have to go through the Rainbow Bridge. Like it's a shortcut to another dimension. Ugh. So yeah, that really bugged me. Like they just had ships flying in and out. It's fine, whatever. No, you gotta go through the fucking Rainbow Bridge. So at the end, there were some changes made. You know, Thor's missing an eye. Asgard's in ruins, and all the Asgardians are basically refugees. With all these changes, it still doesn't feel like anything was actually changed or affected in this movie. Thor didn't really change. He didn't learn a new lesson. Loki didn't learn a new lesson. Everyone is the same from the beginning there at the end. Things happen to stuff. Like I said, Asgard is taken apart, but going back to them saying this shifted up the universe, Winter Soldier, which they compared it to, got rid of S.H.I.E.L.D. It, put Nick Fury on a different path. It brought in, a crazy villain that's going to be a continuous character. Like, it added stuff to this universe. This one is just album filler. There's nothing to it I feel like you would miss in other movies. It just kind of existed and went away. And finally, the last big problem I had that would be a spoiler is, so of course in the trailer you see Mjolnir get destroyed, and Odin dies, and so Thor goes into this dream sequence in the end. I don't know if he died or what happened, but like he's like, oh, I can't beat Hela. And basically, Odin gives him the speech of, the Mjolnir was in you all along.
Use the Schwartz, Lone Star. Use the Schwartz.
I can't. I lost the ring.
Forget the ring. The ring is Bupkis. I found it in a Cracker Jack box. The Schwartz is in you, Lone Star. It's in you.
All right. I'll try.
Yeah, it reminded me of Spaceballs. In your movie, it reminded me of Spaceballs. It was really stupid, really cheesy. I didn't like that at all. Sorry. That's it for spoilers, so let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. So in the end, Thor Ragnarok was a lot of fun, but it's easily forgettable. I relate it more to something like Ant-Man or Doctor Strange. There's not a lot to want me to bring back to this movie and go back to it multiple times. It's just feels like filler waiting up for Infinity War rather than Thor's next big outing. It's just stuff going on. It's nothing of consequence, but it is some good fun. So, yeah, it's good, but it is forgettable. So I gotta give it the rating of a rental. I don't think you really have to go out to see this. You should see it and check it out when it comes out, for rental on Netflix or Redbox or on your cable or whatever. But I don't really know if you need to spend all the money you'd spend at a theater for this. I think you can see this one at home and just be just fine. So, yeah, it's a rental. So that's Thor Ragnarok for you. I'm Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard. Until next time, hold on to your hold slots.